How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today on the pod, we're going to be talking with Kate Curran. She is a professional triathlete from the UK. She is on the TTL dev team, and yeah, she's relatively new to the sport, but been climbing the ranks really fast. She's obviously a super awesome person. She's also a lawyer. Didn't know that. So really interesting conversation circling around her life. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Kate Curran. Really quick before we get back to the show, just wanted to say that we have episode 100 coming up. I can't even believe that. And we are going to do things a little bit different for that episode. I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to interview me and ask me some questions. So if you have some questions you would be interested in asking, you can check the show notes link in the description. It will take you to a Google form where you can add any and all and as many questions as you would like to. I will compile a list and hopefully go through as many of those questions as I can for that episode. So if you're interested in that, check out the link. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy today's show.
It's coming up to 6:10, so early evening.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been a really nice day in the UK today, really sunny. So
yeah, I was going to say, I see the sun blasting through. When's the sun down? Like, when's the sunset for you guys this time of year right now?
7:15, my watch is saying. So the nights are drawing in. Like, just trying to go out a bit earlier for my evening training. Whereas normally, in the summer you get the luxury of leaving it to a bit later. So trying to get a bit more organised so I get out before it starts to get dark.
Yeah, for sure. And you haven't even been home that long, right?
No, the last month or so I've kind of been here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
I had the European champs in Tallinn and Estonia, and then I
Mm-hmm.
went straight. Well, actually, I came home for 2 days and then flew to Austria. I was out in Austria for just over a week, and then just been doing a few little random events here and there. So it's been nice just to be back home for a couple of days. But I'm going back
Sure.
to join my training group in Eastbourne in a couple of days' time. Well, actually, I'm going to go down there tomorrow just to get back into routine and proper training. So fun time is over. Back to the grind.
Yeah, back to the grind. So how are you sleeping right now?
How am I sleeping in terms of quality and?
Yeah, quality. Are you sleeping well? Are you feeling stressed?
No, when I'm home, I sleep so well. And I think, well, especially I've just started sort of not really ramping up my training, but just sort of building back up again. And that's made me a bit more tired. So, just banking the sort of 10 hours of sleep. So, I can't complain. But when I go back to my training group next week, we swim very early in the morning. So that's going to be a real shock to the system.
Yeah. How early are you getting up for those sessions?
They start at, gosh, it's been so long I've done them, I can't even remember. I think they start at 6, but we get there a bit early to do some land exercises and to generally wake up before we dive in. So, I mean, it's not horrifically early, but it's early enough that I'll notice the difference compared to getting up I don't know, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock right now.
Yeah. And so you said 9 to 10 hours of sleep. I'm getting to the age now, I guess, that I just can't do that as much. I can kind of top out at 9, but has that always been the case for you, or is it pretty easy for you to when you go to sleep, you're staying asleep until you wake up either by alarm or naturally, or what?
It just massively varies, to be honest. I think at the moment, because I haven't got too many worries, I'm not nervous about anything. I'm just quite relaxed at the moment. So I think, especially while I haven't got any races, I'm just really, especially over the next couple of weeks, just focusing on recovering, being in a good kind of overall physical condition before I start building my training up to kind of the serious levels. Because I think if you start ramping things up, but you're already a bit fatigued and not getting proper recovery, then you're not building on a solid foundation. So, but I mean, it varies massively. When I'm doing some, I don't know, if I'm really busy at work and I'm sort of working quite late on my laptop, I find that really kind of disturbs my sleep a bit because I'm just I'm sure other people have the same thing where you're staring at a screen till quite late. It does affect how sort of quickly you can fall asleep, and also if you have a deep sleep. But it comes and goes. When I get good sleep, I try and bank it because I know other times as you say, it's not always possible. So I can't complain too much.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, you've been super busy. So I guess just for context for the listeners, I had the opportunity to meet you in person for the first time because somebody put together a dinner, I guess, for St. Anthony's, which that was your first race of the season, correct?
St. Anthony's was actually, well, it was my second. I'd raced in Oceanside and then flew over to Florida before I went to St. George. But it was, early season. I'd say it was part of the early chapter of my season that was super exciting and super fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, and St. Anthony's was a real part of that. So yeah, it was really cool to meet you there actually.
Yeah, yeah, no, super great honor. So talk to me a little bit about the contrast of who Kate was back at the early this year and then who is Kate today. Like, what has changed in your mindset? What has changed in your perspective on traveling around? I know you were spending a lot of time traveling the US a little bit for the first time, I believe. So tell me a little bit about that experience.
Sure. So yeah, for your listeners, I decided to start my season in America, starting off with Oceanside, and as you say, I flew to St. Anthony's for an Olympic distance race in Florida. Then went to St. George, and then yeah, that kind of seems like such a long time ago now. But I guess since I don't know, call it 4 or 5 months ago, I'd say in some ways not much has changed. Like my game plan is still the same. It's always prepare for races, go to the
Hmm.
most competitive races I can, take it all very seriously, but also kind of have perspective on it. But then I guess things have changed in the sense that I've moved up through the rankings. I've got some really good results that I'm super proud of. I've sort of gained confidence, gained momentum, gained a lot of experience with racing, and also just generally how professional triathlon works and what I
Yeah.
want to get out of it and how I approach things. So yeah, things have changed in some ways, but also just still very much the same. Like I'm still loving training, still loving competing, still loving meeting lots of new people. You know, especially when I went over
Hmm.
to America, I kind of just found that people were really friendly. I got to know a lot of people like yourself,
Hmm.
and just kind of expanded my network a little bit. And I realized that's a real part of triathlon racing. Like who you meet when you're doing the races is really important, and
Yeah.
you never know where those connections might take you. So um, yeah, that chapter of kind of my racing at the start of the year was really fun. And as I say, I've learned a lot, but some things are still the same, still just yeah, as I said at the beginning, just taking things pretty seriously, just trying to keep moving through the ranks, and yeah, just keep myself on track.
Yeah, for sure. So I was gonna save this question for later, but I think that it's appropriate to ask it now. So I was doing a little, I guess, sleuthing or background information, trying to find some stuff on you, and I was looking at your Instagram, and at the beginning, there's like this quote that you have there. It's like rookie with no time to waste, but you have it seems striked through the rookie with part, and now it just says no time to waste. Is that intentional?
Yeah, I guess actually it's me trying to be clever in that like last year was my rookie season, like as in first year
Yeah.
professional, whereas this year I'm no longer a rookie, it's my second year. But I still have, yeah, I guess that sense of like no time to waste. I just want to get down to things, go to the biggest races I can, get stuck in. Um, I guess it kind of comes a bit from like I'm 28, so I feel like I'm kind of getting to those years where I could be at my peak. So yeah,
Hmm.
I guess that no time to waste is just like a bit of fun, but also comes from a fairly serious place in that I'm, no time to waste. Let's get on with things. Let's get to the good part.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so we'll come back to this because I have some more questions to that, but I want to dive in a little bit to, I guess, who you are as a person, like how you grew up. So I'm going to start off with the first question. Where are you from in the UK?
I'm, I guess, a born and bred Londoner, so southeast in the UK. Yeah, my parents sort of grew up around this area, and then yeah, I've sort of grown up in the southeast, and then particularly through triathlon, and then through school, and then university, I've sort of moved around a little bit.
So let me ask you this question then. Um, how did your family or how has your family shaped you into who you are today? Like, do you have siblings? What was your family dynamic like as you were growing up?
Yeah, so yeah, I have an older brother, and then yeah, my two parents. So we're a fairly like small family unit. You know, there's not loads of us, but we're all. I'd say we're all very close. Especially as I've grown up, I've yeah, I got on well with my brother. He yeah, when I was growing up, he was into sport as well. So I kind of, in some ways, I do triathlon partly because he did too.
Okay.
Especially sort of coming at it from growing up as mainly a swimmer. My brother is someone who's just naturally very gifted, very talented, and he started swimming club at a young age, and I kind of copied him, I guess, but just without. I don't know. I don't think I'm as naturally gifted as he is, but
Hmm.
I think I'm probably a lot more competitive and willing to work extremely hard, whereas he's someone that maybe relies on talent a little bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say having an older brother definitely shaped me in terms of it gives you someone to want to kind of compete against and emulate in some respects. And then my parents also have hugely shaped my life. They're people who are just I look up to, I really respect. They've sort of taught me the value of hard work, creating opportunities and giving yourself choices in life. They're sort of that's like one of the big life lessons that they've always sort of kind of passed on and emphasized. But also, my parents are very fun people. They sometimes come to my races, and maybe some of your listeners might have met them at races. They're people who are very supportive and keep things in perspective. And I think, that's kind of shaped how I look at things as well. So I'm really lucky. I think, my family are amazing. People say you can't choose your family, but I would choose mine. They're just awesome, totally supportive of what I do and just really encouraging. And I love that.
Yeah, for sure. And you said something interesting to me. You said that you feel like you don't have as much necessarily talent as your brother, but you have the determination and competitiveness, I guess, to try to achieve or get to quote unquote his level. First question, how many years are you guys apart? And second, what makes you believe or say like and think that you aren't necessarily as talented?
So we're 3 years apart. So I think he's old enough that say when we were growing up, he would sort of set a level, and I wasn't, so much younger that I couldn't, kind of follow it. I was old enough to kind of see, oh, he's at this level, I want to be at that level too.
Hmm.
And I don't know, maybe I sort of put myself down when I say I don't have talent, but I think I'm someone that thinks hard work matters more than what you're naturally gifted at.
Yeah.
And I think I've always sort of just come at whatever it is from that kind of angle. I don't know, like I think back to when I was at school and I would just revise night and day because I wanted to get the best grades, be the best in my class.
Wow.
It's just the way I am. Whereas, I wasn't just happy to rely on the fact that, okay, maybe I've got like a level of I'm smart at this level, but I want to be at, this level. I want to be the best. So, and I think I've always been of the view that you can't you can't take shortcuts in life. You have to just put the work in if you want to achieve things. So I think that's what I mean when I say I'm not like, I think I have sort of natural talents in some respect, but
Sure.
I'm not someone that will just rely on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I say that not to necessarily push back. I mean, I've met you some and I've got to follow your journey. I think there's definitely some aspect of talent there, but not to push back too much. I just think it's really interesting, um, or peculiar. Like a lot of professional athletes do say that, like they feel like they aren't as talented. And I think as individuals, we tend to like think that we aren't as talented as someone else looking in because we experience ourselves on a day-to-day basis and you know what we can and can't do, so we're very familiar with our limits and things like that. Like, because I think Trevor Foley has a similar stance on the talent versus hard work and things like that. Yeah, so I just want to dive into that a little bit. So with the hard work, you obviously like hard work. Does that come as a way of nurture or more of nature for you, you think?
Oh, good question. I think it's probably a combination of the two.
Hmm.
I don't just like hard work for the sake of hard work. I like it because I can see it will lead to something and it will kind of unlock opportunities. And I think I kind of see that there's like, if I have a goal, for example, I just respect the hard work that you need to do to get there. Um, I would say it's nature in the sense that I think I've always been like it. As I said, like at school, I just tried really hard and would be the kid that would, go to the extra classes, would, I don't know, do all the homework and just kind of want to be the best I possibly could be. But then I guess it's also a bit of nurture in that, like, as I kind of said at the beginning, like my parents, they've always kind of said you have to give yourself choices in life, create opportunities, and to do that, you have to be prepared to just go that extra mile, be meticulous in how you prepare for things, and just really like do things with purpose is how I'd kind of describe it.
Yeah. Who do you think you're more like in character and way of life, your mom or your dad?
Again, I think it's a mixture of the two. I mean, if you see me and my mum together, then like in terms of how we look and how we are, I think we are extremely similar, and
Hmm.
we do get along really well because of that. I think. But then I'd say from the kind of sports side of things, I get the kind of the enjoyment and just the understanding of kind of the background from my dad, because he sort of is the more sporty of the two. But then my mum is kind of the competitive one, and I think I definitely get that from her.
Yeah. So for sport, for you guys and your family, is this something that has always existed? Like since you were young, even maybe prior to you and your brother being alive, is this something that's pretty central to your family?
I think so. Yes, as long as I can remember. I mean, my parents, when they were growing up, they didn't really do any organised competitive sports. It just wasn't a thing. Like, they grew up on a council estate. It's not really something that was available to them. But I think because of that, it then became something that they wanted me and my brother to be able to experience and just have a go at. So yeah, growing up, I did pretty much every sport I wanted to do. I did swimming, gymnastics, netball, started doing a bit of running when I was sort of early teenage years. Grew up watching triathlons. Like, my dad kind of got into it when it was a very, very niche sport in the UK.
Hmm.
He sort of actually came at it. I think he grew up going to Cornwall and surfing, and then to help improve his kind of swimming for his surfing, he joined started swimming at the local pool. And when
Okay.
he was going there, he sort of ran into a group of triathletes, and so that's how he got into the sport. But that was sort of in the 80s and 90s, when no one really knew what triathlon was. But it meant that as like a kid, I was going and watching him at the weekends doing kind of local triathlons. And then when my brother started doing it, it was the same again. So I think I've always been surrounded by sport, and just, as I say, my parents were really keen for me to try whatever sport I was interested in. And to be honest, I enjoyed whatever sport I did. And I would do a
Yeah.
taster session, and at the end, the coach would be like, "Oh, you've got to join our club. Like, you can be in our team. You can come to this practice. Like, join." And it just got to a point where my mum was like, it was just a headache for her, because I would
Yeah.
just be like, "Oh, I want to do water polo, I want to do swimming, I want to do gymnastics." It was just, it got a bit crazy, but I just loved it. I think if you try different sports when you're a kid, that just, it's not just the way a way of keeping active and healthy as a kid. I think it also teaches you so many life lessons and skills, and you meet so many people that I maybe wouldn't have come across through like my kind of schooling path, but I came across them through sport, and they become lifelong friends. So definitely, when I have kids in the future, I'd love for them to try whatever sport they want as well, because I think, as I say, it's just a fantastic part of my childhood, and I've kept it going as an adult. So I think that kind of says it all, really.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really cool too that from the different conversations I've had on the podcast, it seems that there's a common denominator between relative, we'll say, success or happiness of the individual and the amount of experience that they had at a young age in a lot of cases with different sports. Because I think in the US, I can't speak to the UK as much, but there seems to be this I guess, epidemic or commonality between a lot of people that once you get to high school, you're like, okay, I'm going to college, and people just kind of pick something. But then a lot of the times they'll graduate and they'll realize, oh, I don't actually like this, or they're asking the question, I don't know what to major in, or I don't know what to do with my life. And I think oftentimes because there's not a diverse enough of experience to say like what I do and don't like in the working world. So I almost wonder if it would be, or if it's possible to, I mean, obviously give the kids a lot of the sporting experiences, because you figure out things you do and don't like, and you can learn a lot about yourself in sport too. I think that could translate to the business world. Competitive edge. Do you like working with people? Are you more individualized, extroverted versus introverted, and all those things? So I think that, yeah, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, because one day I'll have kids, and how am I going to raise them? But a lot of the influence here that I'm gaining from a lot of these professional athletes, or just successful people in general, is to give them a lot of neat experiences, but choices in the beginning of their life. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Everything you just said, especially the choices kind of side of things, because I think, say when I was, I don't know, 14, 15, it gets to a point where, I wanted to do triathlon at a high level, and you sort of feel the pressure to really kind of specialize and put everything into triathlon. But that's, at the time when you're 14 or 15, you don't know, well, I personally didn't know exactly where triathlon might lead. I didn't really know how I could become a professional athlete. And also I was taking kind of my exams and school really seriously as well. And I knew I wanted to go to like the best university I could. So I think something that I think I think it particularly comes from my parents at the time. They were like, just keep your path as wide and diverse as you can, follow your passions, but at the same time keep other avenues open, because there's always that pressure to specialize. But I think if you have choices in life, that's straight away you're putting yourself in quite like an kind of an empowered position, because then when you do decide to do something, you're doing it because it's something you enjoy and you've really chosen to do it. You're not doing it because it's the only option available to you, if that makes sense. So as you say, I think keeping a diverse range of interests and passions and kind of goals, I think it's something that's really helped me through life.
Yeah. What are some of your interests and passions outside of triathlon? They don't even have to necessarily be sport related.
Well, I think it might sound like a weird thing to say as a passion, but for me, when I was growing up, I really wanted to do well at school so I could go to a really good university. I had kind of had my eyes set on going to Cambridge from when I was like 14 or 15, because I just knew it was one of the best universities in the world. And like a teacher kind of said to me, you could get there, you've got to get these grades, but you've got the potential. And so even though it sounds like a bit of a geeky thing to say, I'd say that was like my passion when I was like, I don't know, 15, 16. It's just like I was so focused on getting into this university. And I'd say, since then I've kind of, my passions and like my interests have kind of moved around. While I was studying, and actually when I started full time as a lawyer, triathlon wasn't a passion of mine at all. I just got to a point where I kind of said like I kind of pursued it to the level I want to, and now I'm sort of gonna kind of go into full-time work and follow my passion into becoming like the best lawyer I can possibly be, and that was like my focus in life. But then now I'm sitting here as a professional triathlete, so I'm obviously very interested in triathlon again. So I think
Sure.
it's okay in life for your passions to ebb and flow. You'll find your way eventually, and as I said, like there's always that pressure to specialize, but there's nothing wrong with following a different path, and then sometimes you do a bit of a U-turn and find yourself back to where you started. But that's life, isn't it? It's always good to keep things interesting.
No, I think I always look at my life or in the people closest to me in the context of seasons, because I think you go through a season where you can be really obsessed about triathlon, and another season where you're like, oh, I need a break. Maybe I'm going to go, like you said, focus on being a lawyer. I've met some of those kinds of people, or whatever the thing is, the ups and downs. You're always going in kind of in this circle of interested, disinterested in figuring out new ways of life. So when you started to make that decision from moving away from the academic focus to becoming more of like a triathlete focus, how did that work for you? Like, what was it? Was it something that you noticed in yourself relatively quick where like, oh, I think I want to just, cut it clean here and go focus on triathlon? Or was it this subtle growth over time where you just decided to make the switch? What was it like for you?
It was kind of it happened kind of quickly and slowly at the same time. So I was kind of really following this path of I was training to be a corporate lawyer, and then I qualified, and that was kind of a 3-4 year process. And then I thought, all right, I'm on this kind of escalator now of that's the path that I'm taking. That's kind of where I'm leading to. But then at the same time, I kind of felt like my life was kind of missing something. I was kind of doing a bit of sport here and there, but I think especially growing up as the kind of person in like my class and my school as a sporty person, and I just really I think I just missed doing sport at some kind of level and kind of pushing myself. So while I was kind of focusing on my job and my career, I think I realized that like I'm not as fulfilled in my life as I kind of want to be. There's something else out there that I just feel like I haven't accomplished, or it's kind of missing from my life. So that was kind of like a slow realization, I think. But then I'd say it's also it happened kind of suddenly, and I just, particularly over lockdown, I was like, oh, I think I want to do triathlon again. I started training. I started, just doing pushing myself a bit more in the world of sport again. And I remember just going for like a walk with my mum and saying to her, I think I want to be a professional triathlete. And she was like, where has this come from? Like, especially when you're kind of on a very like established career, and everything I've been doing had been leading up to becoming just a corporate lawyer, saving up to buy a house and moving out and things like that. And then suddenly I was just like, I think I want to do professional triathlon, and I didn't really have a clue of how that would happen or what that would mean in terms of, am I still going to be a lawyer? Am I just suddenly going to become a triathlete again? So yeah, it was something that happened fast, but also kind of slowly. It was, quite a weird phase of my life, but I've kind of come out of the other side with that sense that, I've got balance in my life again that I think I was missing before, when I was just kind of head down, full-time lawyer, working crazy hours. That I realised that wasn't what I want from my life right now. I wanted something else, and that something else was sport again.
Did you graduate and become a lawyer, or was this like in the middle of it? You did. Okay, so you're full on lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah, so I studied history, and then I did kind of a law conversion course, and then trained to be a lawyer. So I was kind of studying and training to be a lawyer for altogether I think it took about 5 or 6 years. So, and during that time I was doing a bit of running, a kind of some very casual competitions, nothing at a particularly high level. But so yeah, it was quite a big gap in my life where I just wasn't doing competitive sport, but for some reason that kind of real like drive to get back out there and do triathlon to some kind of level again was just kind of crept up on me, and I was like, right, I've got to make this happen before it's too late.
Yeah. So now that you've kind of dropped or stopped and moved on from that, and you're in the professional triathlete world, what is your relationship with the profession and like everything? Because, and to be fair, you kind of told me a little bit like you felt empty, you were working really long hours, it was very difficult. But what's your relationship with it now? Is it something that you could revisit later? Is it something that brings you anxiety now when you think about it, or?
So I still work part-time as a lawyer, so it's still like a really big part of my life. It's my way of funding triathlon. It's also my way of keeping triathlon in perspective. So yeah, it's not the most like traditional way or conventional way of pursuing professional sport, but at the moment it's the way that I can make it kind of happen. And it's just for me it's a great combination. I work fairly flexible hours. I kind of work on a consultancy basis, so I take property deals on, depending on kind of what competitions I have, what training I need to do. So I just think it's a really unusual combination, but it's something that works really well for me and means that, I'm keeping that side of my life. I have kind of like a very steady side of my life with my law and legal work, and then I have the slightly more, up and down side of my life that is triathlon. So I think the two together give me plenty to kind of focus on and keep busy with. So I just love what I'm doing, and it's working for me, so I don't think too deeply about it.
Yeah. So I'm interested just in the law side of things, if you don't mind me asking more questions about it. But with the work you do, you said property deals. Is this like real estate corporate law, like where people are buying large pieces of commercial property, or how does that work for you?
Yeah. So I specialize in commercial property. So anything from hotels, offices, data centers, student accommodation. There's a whole range of kind of asset classes that I deal with. And I trained at like an American law firm. Actually, it was one of the top firms in the world. And fairly recently, I've moved to another firm where I can. They were really supportive of me doing professional triathlon at the same time as my legal work.
That's great.
But I think when I first started to be a lawyer, the way it works is, especially in the UK, you sort of train in a range of areas and then you decide where you want to specialise. But I think fairly early on, I just knew I wanted to do commercial property. It's just I think it's quite a cool job. It's not, there are maybe areas of law that people associate with being a bit more exciting, a bit more sexy. But for me, commercial property is just what suits me and what I enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of like the practical aspects of what you do, are you analyzing the deals, legal language between like buy and sell agreements, or are you doing some type of underwriting? Like what does a corporate lawyer do for specifically that type of work?
It's a huge range. So a big part of what I do is what we call due diligence. So say a client is looking to kind of buy a portfolio of properties. They come to us and say, I'm interested in this portfolio, but what are the risks? involved, tell us the background, and we then present it to the client, and it's then up to them to make kind of the business decision. But as a lawyer, I'm kind of really trained to see the risks, but also to see potential kind of opportunities, to kind of negotiate contracts. It's kind of a mix of what I do. Some of it is client facing, so I'll have direct contact with the client, or some of it is more kind of behind the scenes, where we get kind of access to, say, like a data room of loads and loads of property documents, and we have to sift through them, and it's the more kind of like volume based kind of work. I just enjoy it. It's quite varied. I work with some really cool people, and it's a good way to, as I say, keep professional triathlon. That's, as I say, it's kind of an up and down side of my life, whereas my legal work is more consistent and gives me that kind of base and stability, and something outside of triathlon.
Yeah. So I would dare to say that Kate is probably the most prepared for taking on new sponsorship contracts, because you're going to probably be quite an animal when it comes to negotiating contracts and things like that. Has this translated into your triathlon career and the things that you hopefully very soon will be taking part in terms of negotiating and signing deals?
I guess I would hope, having, studied and trained for so long, that as a lawyer, when it comes to triathlon, I can look at contracts and see some pitfalls, some opportunities. But, I would never profess to be a know-it-all. The world of sport is quite different to the world of commercial properties. To be honest, I haven't seen that many sports contracts in my life. But I would, as I say, I would hope like my training does come in useful in some respects.
Yeah, for sure. So as you decided to make this move, you've been racing now and you are a professional. What are some of the, I guess, highlights or moments or things that happened that kind of cemented in your mind, like, okay, this is going in a good direction, like I made the right choice?
So I guess, last year was my kind of first year doing it professionally, and I came third at 170.3. So for me, getting on the podium at just a 70.3 was like a really good kind of step forward, a bit of like a tick in the box of, okay, I can be on the podium. I know it's possible. And then I kind of got my head down, did a really good winter of training, and then this year I would say I've ticked more boxes that have made me think, this is the right path. I've got the potential. I'm still fairly early on in kind of my professional sporting career, but I've shown that I have the kind of raw ingredients that could take me to that kind of next kind of world-class level, is how I'd describe it. So I guess in particular, this year I've raced exclusively in the Pro Series. So I've really targeted the most competitive races that are available to me. Sort of in the middle of my season back in June, I again got another podium, but I'd say compared to the year before, it was a podium that meant almost more to me because it was an extremely competitive field. I was kind of really battling all day and part of the race. I say particularly getting a podium in a Pro Series race was a really big step forward for me. But then when I look at the season as a whole for this year, it's just like each race I kind of have really learned something from it, taken it to the next race and implemented it. And I think just that process of learning things and trying it in the next race and just taking a step forward each time, that's kind of how I've seen this season. It's just been a gradual improvement, race on race, building, and just getting closer to the level that I really, really want to be at, and just seeing the gaps to the like top level just close a bit each time. Not every race has been perfect, and I still know that there's those gaps there, but the most important thing is that I'm moving forwards, and I still, I really believe I've got that potential, and I can see it's kind of coming out now, but I've still got to take some big steps forward and just keep going in that direction.
Yeah. How big of a part do you think that your own confidence and self-belief plays into your physical ability?
Yeah, I think confidence is massive. That is something for me that takes time to develop. Some athletes, they're just naturally very confident, whereas I'd say I'm naturally a quite cautious person, and I think things through sometimes more than I need to. But this year I've really tried to just part of building that confidence has been to just say, like, I'm going to go to the most competitive races. If I get top 10, brilliant. If I get top 5, that's even better. And kind of, build the confidence through just racing and being at those big races, and seeing exactly where I stack up. Because obviously, like, there's other races out there that maybe are technically a lower tier down, and I might come higher up in those. But for me, the confidence really comes from seeing where I am compared to the top level. So that's been my strategy for this year. But that's not to say that, to be honest, I think the level in all the races has gone up this year. Like, you can't cherry pick races in the way that maybe was possible 5 or 10 years ago. I'm trying to improve myself at a time when the sport is also just, the level is going up. So it's a really interesting kind of time to be someone in my position, when you're trying to improve at the same time. As I say, as that the sport is also kind of rapidly growing in depth, and just the top levels also, the bar is rising all the time.
Yeah, I think the fact that they put a brand around Pro Tri Series and then opened up these very specific races is attracting the top talent, obviously more acutely, I guess, to one area, so that you do have those more competitive fields. Some people have actually denied that, because I think some people were getting frustrated. I've seen comments like, nothing's truly a stacked race unless it's like a T100 race or this, that, and the other. But I kind of disagree, because I think that branding the races Pro Tri Series and having the extra prize money and the different incentives to draw people to those races does make it more competitive. And I mean, even for me personally, it seems like I was thinking that the peak ages of being able to be your best in the sport were much higher. I would even say like mid to upper 30s. But now that a lot of the younger generation, I guess, is kind of moving into the sport, and a lot of short course guys are coming over, like, you start to see these glimmers of like, oh, it's gonna, I think the age is actually probably gonna come back down. This is just my own anecdotal, what I'm kind of observing, but it does seem like before I was like, oh yeah, I'm only like this many minutes behind what a top leader is finishing, and now I'm like, okay, well, that has now grown probably, I would say, by like at least 10 to 15 minutes in the past just 2 years. Like high 340s for guys to like low 330s now is like pretty common.
Yeah, definitely. I think, as you say, I think there's a range of reasons for why the sport is just, the bar is rising all the time. But yeah, it just makes the challenge even more exciting. It really makes me kind of sit down at the end of a race and think, okay, this is the gap in this race. In another race, the gap might be bigger, it might be smaller. But I think, just to see, I just enjoy seeing where I am compared to the top ones, and just going to the best races that I can. That for me is what I find really rewarding, really fulfilling. It's what makes me train even harder. So yeah, obviously it's, when you know that the kind of base level to get on a podium or to win a race, when that's getting harder and harder, it's a bit like, oh my god, this is so hard. But that's why this sport, like, that's why I'm at professional level. If it was easy, then I would kind of be like, oh, like, is this a professional sport? But like, there's no question, this is professional. You have to be world class if you're getting on podiums these days, or even have a sniff of the podium.
Yeah, for sure. So, to go back to your Instagram for a second, you had another hashtag, quiet the moaning. So I'm assuming this comes from a similar place in terms of your values and mindset around work ethic, but why did you choose that hashtag? Like, what does that mean to you?
Quit the moaning. It's something that I think, it does kind of go back to just get the hard work done. Don't make excuses. Don't try and find shortcuts. And I think it's also a way to sometimes approach races when like say before St. George, in the week leading up to the race, I got ill when I travelled from the race in Florida to St. George, and I was like, oh, I'm ill, I've got a cold, and I don't think I can race. And actually, I then was like, okay, I'm ill. That's just a fact. There's nothing I can change. I can sit here and moan about it and say, oh, it's going to cost me X amount of time in the race. It's going to make me feel rubbish. Or I can sit here and think, okay, I'm still at this championship race. I'm still able to race. And there's probably other people on the start line who have also had kind of imperfect preparation. You know, it's very, very hard to have a perfect lead into a race and then to get to a race fit and healthy. That's kind of part of the challenge. So I guess, yeah, the quit the moaning hashtag is just, again, just a lighthearted thing for me to remind myself that, you know, perfection is great, but if you can't quite attain perfection, then don't moan about it. Just do what you can with what you've got. And that is what makes a true competitor, is just finding a way to perform, even if, you know, not all your kind of ducks are in a line. Quit the moaning, just get on with it. Sometimes that's just something that I just come back to.
Yeah, I like that. I find personally, and I've observed this, I think in others as well, that someone's ability to come to a place when a bunch of bad things have happened. Maybe your bike got messed up, or, you know, recently when you met Mark Dubrick, like he had to race on a loaner bike last minute in Beijing or whatever it is. Like people have all these things that happen that are out of their control. Sometimes I have found that even though you have a lot of these like really bad things stack up, once you get to a place where you can kind of just accept what happened and control what you can control, there's oftentimes more peace and even sometimes a better result. I think that comes from just that acceptance, even through all of the hard trials, than if everything went perfectly in the beginning. Because then you have to like, it seems like stack on a level of pressure on yourself because you have such a good lead up. Like, oh, I need to, there's no excuse not to have a really good race. But then when you have all this bad stuff happen, it's like, well, whatever happens, happens. But I think that gives, if we could have that mindset of whatever happens, happens, even if we had a really good lead up to a race, I feel like that would, again, give you that extra 2 or 3% to do even more. But it's hard to accept that and get to that place of peace and calm, that of, you know, not moaning or whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite often it just comes down to mindset and just, as you say, just accepting as something isn't optimal and isn't how you choose it to be, but just finding a way to say, okay, that's the fact, that's the circumstance, but what's important is how I'm going to get through it. Like, what strategies am I going to use to make it, you know, not a barrier to a good performance? And I think sometimes the way I think about races, I almost, in some ways rely on what I've learned as a lawyer. So I guess, like, as an example, like say a client really, really wants to do a property deal, but there's, you know, we've discovered something in our due diligence that is a bit of a problem. But if that client really believes that it's still a good business opportunity, then our role as lawyers is to kind of put that problem into a wider perspective and say to them that this is a problem, but it's only a problem if X happens, or it's a problem in the sense of, you know, you might need to chip the price by a certain amount. You know, a problem is, sometimes it depends on like how you see that problem in the wider perspective, in the wider context. So yeah, things like that I kind of sometimes almost have to put my lawyer hat on when I'm approaching a race, or just if I'm thinking about something. You know, I sometimes think, you know, if I talk to a client here, how would I really explain the problem and analyze it? Whereas sometimes if you're looking at it just for yourself, you can become emotional and overthink things. But yeah, if you can almost externalize it and just analyze it for what it is, I think that does sometimes really help me overcome problems and just put them in the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's a really good practical tip. I feel like I should try that. Although I think inherently I'm just more emotional than most. So it's even sometimes when I talk to people in the business perspective, there's always a flavor of emotion that comes into it, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, but it can get me into trouble. I think my biggest lesson, or the thing that I've been trying to learn over the past several years, is how to de-escalate situations, which is very hard for me as a passionate individual, whether it's a physical thing or something more mental that you're like arguing over someone or some deal or whatever it is. But those are hard lessons to learn. So I may have to take some of your tips there and see
Yeah,
how would
do
Kate
a
do this?
degree. Yeah, do a degree in law, and you learn so much that
Yeah.
people think sometimes it's a bit of a boring, or I don't know, like a cutthroat profession. But in some ways it is. But it's also a profession that teaches you so many skills that just you can extrapolate and apply to other
Hmm.
circumstances, whether that's sport or, like, I don't know, personal decisions. It's it's. I actually think some triathletes would make really good lawyers, because uh, the way you think sometimes as a triathlete is how you need to think as a lawyer, and vice versa. So when I say to people I'm a lawyer and a triathlete, I think that's such a weird combination, but in some ways they do sit together really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think being able the logic side of it, to, like you were saying, be very black and white, kind of throw out the emotions for a minute. What are the facts? What are the well, what do we know, and how can we create a solution regardless of how I'm quote unquote feeling or thinking about it? I think that's definitely a huge piece. So maybe you should start a law school specifically for triathletes. When you're done, you can like kind of bring them in, and you can have a whole firm full of triathletes.
Oh no, I think I might struggle to get even a handful of people sign up for that. Triathletes are busy people; they haven't got time for law
Yeah.
classes. But maybe as a retirement thing, maybe I should approach some retired triathletes and see if they'd be interested.
Yeah, for sure. I look forward to seeing it. So I want to ask a question about mental bandwidth. So you were telling me that you've kind of come into this place right now in the part of the season where it's kind of nose to the grindstone, a little less pressure, no big races necessarily on the horizon in like in the next little while. Even though you are in a moment of peace right now, what is taking up the most mental bandwidth for you? Like what's sitting at the front of your mind most days right now?
I think just knowing that I've got a world championship in 3 months that I've kind of had on my radar since it was announced and since I qualified at Oceanside, that is at the forefront of my mind. I see it as this race where, I could have I do have such a good opportunity to really just get some good training firstly under my belt, and then get to New Zealand and just see it as another race in a season that's been kind of characterized by just putting myself in, as I kind of said before, in the most competitive races I can, and seeing really where I stack up. I think last year, I raced at Worlds in my first year as a pro, and that was something that I was really proud of because my knees were knocking together. I was so nervous to kind of put myself in that like arena, and I'm lining up to next to Daniela Reef,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, Kat Matthews, Ali Salthouse, like all these big names that I've seen on TV and know that are like the big stars in our sport, and suddenly I'm racing against them. Whereas I think fast forward to this year, I now see it as my knees won't be knocking together on the start line. I won't be so nervous. I see it more as like I've got to this place because I've earned it. I've got that qualifying spot, and I've really kind of moved my level up this year, and I'm here to compete and see where I stack up and really try and get those gaps to the world class people as small as possible. So yeah, that's what's at the forefront of my mind. As kind of, but not in a pressured way. I'm doing this because I've chosen to compete at these most competitive races. It's something that I'm really passionate about. So it's at the forefront of my mind, but it's not stopping me from sleeping at night. It's just something that's motivating me rather than like scaring me.
Yeah, for sure. So as you move closer toward this, let's take a hypothetical for for a second, and you get yourself in a situation where you are one of the top three at this world championship race. That you would obviously become a bit more ubiquitous in the triathlon community. People would know who you are. You would probably rise to some level of fame that you haven't experienced yet. How do you think that something like that would affect you in mentally?
Oh wow, first of all, that would be an incredible result if I were to achieve that or even get close to that. I think, well, it's very hard to speak about because I've never been in that situation before, but I would say that I think it's probably pretty obvious that once you achieve like a really good result like that, then yeah, you're going to have more pressures, more kind of expectation. People are going to be looking out for you more at races. But I think at the end of the day, if it's something that if I'm shooting for such a good result and I'm aiming for that, so then when you achieve it, it's really important to kind of look at yourself and be proud of that and acknowledge that you've earned that and you've worked hard towards that goal. So I think I would try not to overthink it and take it as a positive into the following season. But yeah, I think that's probably something that's easier said than done. Because yeah, with big results comes bigger expectation. But
Sure.
as they say, pressure's a privilege. It's something that you've got to take as part of being a professional athlete, I think. So yeah, that's how I hope I would deal with it. But who knows?
Yeah, for sure. We'll see. Who is the first person that you would call and get in contact with when something like this or any good thing like happened in your life?
Probably my mum, but actually she's coming out to New Zealand, so she would see it in the flesh, and she would probably keel over from excitement. And then probably I have like a really small circle of friends at home who are just so supportive and literally tune in and watch every race that I do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would be on a video call to them and just being like, look what I've done, can you believe it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's who I'd call. But assuming my mum was there, if she wasn't there, then yeah, she would be the first person I'd call, because she would then be like, Kev, which is my dad, come here, like Kate's on the phone. So yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be a fun race. I'm really looking forward to New Zealand. Obviously, I've never been there before, and I'll be racing there with you and a lot of other people who I've gotten to meet over the past year, really. So it's going to be such an interesting thing to. It's almost like a little reunion to a degree, and get to see a lot of the faces who a lot of them haven't met face to face yet. So I'm excited for you and for everybody. It's really hard when you make a lot of friends because you're like you want everybody to be on the podium, but there's only 3 spots, so it makes it a little difficult.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this year I've just met so many people through triathlon, like, and yeah, when you kind of see them at races, like obviously I'm there as a competitor and I'm there to get the best result for me, but it's also just, I don't know, it's just really cool seeing people and like reconnecting with them, and you kind of know what training and what's gone on behind the scenes to get to this high level. So yeah, there's that base level of respect, and you want everyone to have a good race, and
Hmm.
that doesn't take away from the fact that I want to have the best race I can. But yeah, I think especially this year it's made me yeah, I've met so many cool people through triathlon, and that's made me realize that that's a really important part of the sport too.
Yeah, very community driven, and I I can't speak to every sport because obviously I'm not a part of them in any way, shape, or form near to the level I am with triathlon. But there seems to be something unique about this sport that it is very community driven, and even in the professional ranks, there's more of a community sense rather than just like a pure competitive environment where sometimes I think can breed rivalry is good for entertainment and in competition, and kind of the drama aspect of it I guess can be better for some of those other sports in terms of like monetary value being gained for the just the entertainment value purely. So let me ask you, what do you think that we can do, especially within the professional triathlon ranks, to keep that community fervor and respect for each other, and I guess we'll even call it love for each other, so that once things get bigger and out of hand and more money's coming into the situation, that we don't start just being super cutthroat.
um, well, that's a good question. Well, the way I try and approach triathlon is, when I'm at a race, I'm there for myself. Like, I like to do my preparation how I need to. I kind of keep
Mhm.
myself to myself. Um, yeah, I'm there for my own race, and then once the race is done, or even just kind of the days leading in, like, um, if you see a competitor and you can do a bit of training with them, then I think that's quite a nice thing to do, or just going for a coffee or something like that. Like, I think just kind of being a little bit social, but also at the same time balancing that with the things that you need to do for a race. Like, I don't think it's that difficult to do. But I think at the end of the day, everyone has to kind of respect how different people prepare for races in really different ways. So like, as I say, I am a little bit of a hermit. I like to do my own preparation and not have too many distractions and too many things going on. Whereas other athletes are different, and the energy they have for racing is like to an extent derived from having that interaction with other people and being busy in race week. So I think, to be honest, just if everyone respects how everyone needs to prepare, and yeah, just don't think too much about it, and just take people for, you know, just let people do what they need to do. I think that just kind of creates a good atmosphere, because as soon as people are having to do things they don't want to, that's where you then get a bit of friction or whatever. So yeah, I just try and do what I need to do, be polite, be friendly, be humble, respect your competitors. That I think you can be respectful and competitive at the same time. It's not like it's not a zero sum game. You can be respectful and competitive at the same time. So I don't know if that's that good an answer to your question, but that's just
Yeah,
how
it's a
I
good
think
answer.
about it.
Yeah. No, I've asked that question to a few others, but I always love hearing the perspectives because everyone has a different level of experience. And, but yeah, I was just saying, like, I really appreciate the perspectives, because as I've gone through the sport and gotten to talk with more people, I've started to learn some of the, how should I say it, just I guess the financials behind some of the bigger names, and that money is trickling down more and more throughout the ranks. And I know just from seeing it in other industries, whenever money gets involved in larger numbers and things don't go as planned, it can create sour relationships, and then you have sour relationships, and that kind of breeds rumors if people aren't respectful, and then it can kind of just turn into this, I don't know, Formula One situation, or where it's like lots of money involved and it's more about the money and winning than necessarily anything else, when I think that relationships like truly do matter the most. And that's what breeds such a beautiful canvas that is triathlon, because I think in a lot of ways it's almost religious for people because they're so involved in this community, and we meet up on the weekends, and we have this such big of piece of our lives that are shared. Hopefully we can keep that, just to breed really beautiful relationships, because I don't think there's many other sports like the endurance sports, especially triathlon, where you can get people across the finish line and almost everybody has a pretty deep meaning of why they're doing what they're doing. I would say even the professionals as well. Like there's something usually that we're running after, or maybe even running from, or obviously you can do it just because you love it, but usually there's something that fuels that passion underneath, and those stories and the relationships matter the most, I think. So yeah, that's my monologue.
No, I guess, yeah, almost the stuff that you're doing with like the podcast and getting to know different triathletes. I think that's also increasingly becoming part of like almost the community of triathlon, because then when you meet other triathletes, you almost feel like you understand them a bit more, or like if you see one of your favorite triathletes on TV, you kind of maybe know that they've had a really bad injury and that's really affected them, and like you see people as humans, and I think that in itself can create quite a strong kind of community in that respect.
Mhm.
So yeah, kudos to you for doing stuff like this and kind of helping people get their personalities and their like personas out there. Because yeah, triathletes are machines in some ways in terms of like what we put our bodies through and the training we do and the
Yeah.
racing. But at the end of the day, we're just humans trying to do this because yeah, we enjoy it. And yeah, I think it's really cool to get to know the person behind kind of the triathlete you see in their tri suit.
Yeah. No, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it, because yeah, it is a cool place. I'm hoping that continues to grow to give people a platform to, like you're saying, help people understand who the person is behind that tri suit, more than just, oh, they're an athlete who does really amazing physical things, which, don't get me wrong, that's a huge piece of, I think, every person's identity who does this sport. But their story and who they are behind, I think, is something that we can kind of add a lot of context to hopefully inspire a lot of people. So I really appreciate it. So one more question for you, and then I will let you go, because I'm sure you probably want to get some rest and do some other things. But if something was to happen to you tomorrow and you were no longer with us, like maybe I don't want to like paint a bad picture, but like maybe something happened where you couldn't do the sport anymore, or maybe you passed away or something like that, what would you want to be remembered for?
Oh gosh. I'm gonna try and think of it as not because I've died, it's just because I can't do the sport anymore
Yeah, I
after
know. As I
I know
was
that's
saying
a
that, I
bit
was
of a
like, this
sad
sounds really
question.
extreme. Yeah.
What would I want to be remembered for? Well, I guess firstly, I guess just as someone that is determined, hardworking, kind of respects the work and the demands of things. So in that sense, like I'm someone that takes things seriously, but also someone that has a lot of perspective in life. You know, yeah, knowing that achieving things is great, but also having that sense of the process that you go through to achieve things is also really important, and how you go about it. I guess I'd want to be remembered as someone that's you know kind, respectful, polite, humble. Those kind of things I think are quite important. And yes, just someone that's given themselves that opportunity to go after things.
Mm,
I kind of think back to when I was working full time as a lawyer, and I kind of just decided I want to do professional triathlon. That's not a decision that many people would make, or maybe have the confidence and kind of the courage to go after and to just kind of really change their life in that way. So yeah, I even though I'm not the most spontaneous and like risk loving person, but I think in that moment of deciding, okay, I'm on this path, but actually I kind of want to take a bit of a detour and do things differently. I was that person that said, yes, let's do it. Let's give it a try. Let's see where my potential can take me. And I kind of know that that's not something that everyone is able to or feel comfortable doing. So yeah, so I want to be someone that says yes to things and kind of puts myself out there and will be prepared to go after things and realize my potential, because I think that's the most important thing. And otherwise it kind of eats you inside if you know that you're good at something and you have a potential, but you're not brave enough to go after it. So yeah, that's kind of a few things I guess that
Yeah. No, that's really good. Yeah. Being able to have the confidence or just the courage or bravery to step out and chase after things is something that we could all probably grow a little bit in. So I think that's really good.
I'm intrigued. What would your answer to that question be?
What would my answer? What do I want to be remembered for? Oh man, way to turn it around. Let me think about this for a second, because I have thought about this in a lot of ways. I think what I'd really want to be remembered for is someone who brought the best out in others. So there's something that I really dislike that in my life that I've seen a lot happen, or I've seen happen many times. So I'm just going to go from a religious context for a second. There's a lot of really good people who I would deem like really good people, and they've done amazing things and brought a lot of people to healthier places of thinking mentally, spiritually, physically, specifically spiritually in my life. And some of those people have made a mistake that then people point at that mistake and they say, oh, well, that's the reason why I have given up on this belief system, or that's the reason I've given up on this way of living, because they said X, Y, and Z and then they didn't do it. And I really get turned off by that, because I think that people we should let others be our standards for right and wrong, but they should be our examples for right and wrong, but never the standards of them. And to be able to offer forgiveness for somebody for something that they did that was obviously really bad, it doesn't completely erase the things that they did that are good. And that's kind of an unpopular opinion, because the very prominent cancel culture is like, well, if somebody did this over here and then they did this, and it's bad. And don't get me wrong, there's some acts that are horrible and should be condemned to the most extent of the law, and maybe even then some. But that doesn't change the fact that some of the things that they did were good things. And so for me, I want to give a platform to people to show the best sides of who they are, regardless of kind of what they've done in the past. Because I truly do believe that there is kind of this struggle for right and wrong, or good and evil, in all of our lives. And the more that we speak up to the good things and give a platform for that rather than the evil, like that, I think that kind of all boats will rise with the tides situation, where we'll have more good that we can talk about and see and learn from. So yeah, I want to be remembered as a guy who brought the best out in people. I hope that that's a good answer. It's a little bit of a
nice. I like it.
Compliment, but yeah, for sure. Well, Kate, thank you so much for taking the time to ask me a question and for allowing me to ask you just a bunch of questions about your life. It's been cool to see your journey so far. Obviously, I don't know you enough or super well yet, but hopefully we'll get to continue to do that over the years. And yeah, just really appreciate you taking the time. It means a lot, and I think your story will be inspiring to lots of people.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, and I'll see you in New Zealand.
Yes, coming up here pretty soon. It's crazy. Yeah, you said 3 months. I was like doing the math in my head earlier when you said that. I was like, oh my goodness, yeah, it's coming right up.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much to Kate for coming on the episode and sharing with me her life and the different aspects that she is living. It was really cool, especially to hear about her law side of things and how those two different career paths are in a lot of ways connected and overlapping in a lot of the lessons and skills that she's learned. So that was pretty cool. And then when I asked her, what do you want to be remembered for? I think she left us with some advice that I want to continue to try to hold up in my own life. And that is basically to have the courage to go out and try to chase your dreams. If you have something that you have in the back of your mind or in the pit of your stomach that you've been wondering for a while, if you could do it, take that leap of faith, step out, make a plan, see what can happen. And I don't think that you will regret it. So if you made it to this point in the podcast, though, I just want to say thanks so much for being here. If you don't mind liking, commenting, subscribing, reviewing, any and all of those things, on all the platforms that we are on. It really does help continue to grow the podcast. So thank you for doing that in advance. And if you want to sign up for our newsletter, you can do so at the stupidquestions.show website. Thank you guys so much for listening. It is an honor to know each one of you that I do know. Hopefully I get to know more of you over time. And without further ado, we will catch you in the next one.